Welcome back to another edition of the Men Who Cry podcast. You know what to do. You have to like, you have to subscribe, you have to review. Please tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. If you not have to do those things, I have to assume that you are not as thankful for your white wife like Hubbert Davis. We'll be talking about Hubbert Davis in a little bit. Before we get on to that, we'll also be talking a little bit about the new WNBA CBA deal that was agreed to a couple weeks ago. We'll also be talking with, hopefully, Nina, my girl Nina, will be back on the pod to get a little bit more depth of that. But first, we got to talk about the madness that's happening in March. That is right. That's March Madness taking place right now. We are in the Sweet 16. After this weekend, we will be in the Final Four. I think one of the things that March Madness is, as I said before, is a decrescendo, right? For most of the people who watch, most of the casuals, you are simply watching for upsets, right? Like that's kind of the name of the game. That is honestly what March Madness is selling, right? You make brackets. The whole joke is that you can not watch any single game of the season and potentially win your office pool because you did not watch any games. You are simply picking mascots. But I think the thing that has happened, I think the one thing that's actually benefited college sports the most, the two I would say that have benefited the most from the NIL deal, and the one being simply March Madness, is because I don't actually think upsets really kind of mean as much overall. March Madness is, frankly, the worst way to choose a national champion. It simply is. You have teams who play at random times and random gyms with refereeing. Like some of the refereeing I saw over this weekend was just awful, like truly awful. In the St. John's Kansas game, there was a play where the Kansas player clearly hit the ball. Now he slapped the ball. It went off the St. John's player's knee, but it went to the backcourt, and they called a backcourt violation. That did not happen. The St. John's player, the Kansas player, hit the ball, right? For those who don't know, you have to lose the ball in the backcourt and not get it be touched for it to be a backcourt violation. The referee completely missed that. Several other calls in several other games that are just terrible. But the beauty about all this is that now, because of NIL and because we essentially killed off Cinderella, the best of the best are making it much farther, and we're not necessarily having teams get upset. Right now, we only have one double-digit seed that is in the Sweet 16, which is Texas right now. And this has been a trend going on for a while, right? In 2023, we had 3 double-digit seeds make it. We had Princeton, we had Pittsburgh, and we had Utah. The season before that, it was St. Peter's, who got all the way to the Elite 8. We had Miami, that was 10. We had 11, that was Iowa. And we had Michigan, that was 11. 2021, we had 11 UCLA, we had 11 Syracuse, we had number 12 Oregon State, and we had 15 Oral Roberts, if people can remember that. But in the last couple seasons prior to that, like last season, we only had 1, which was NC State, and now we have 1 this season. And in 2020, and that number is going down ever so slightly because the teams are being able to pull guys from those lower schools and able to get in and be one of these power teams. And let's be clear, Texas is not some type of lower school, right? Like we are talking about the University of Texas. While they have not been, I would say, as dominant or as well known for their basketball, I mean, they have had Hall of Famers play there. Kevin Durant played there. LaMarcus Aldridge played at Texas, right? Like they have had some significant NBA talent to come from that school. Jared Allen played at Texas. And the beauty of it now is that now I think you'll actually see the markings of a true champion, right? Where you're not going to have, one team lost on a buzzer beater or another team had bad refereeing in one game, and then you're able to see a team end up playing a 15 seed in a weird region come through and play. I mean, it's going to be St. John's versus Duke. It's UConn versus Michigan State. Iowa State is there. We have some of the biggest and best teams playing in this. And I think the best thing about all this now is that it is showing the true coaching. I mean, the elite of the elites are now coaching in this tournament, right? Like Kevin Sampson from Houston is in it, right? Rick Pitino is in it. Dan Hurley is in it. Duke is always in it. Arizona's in it. Like Coach Cal from Arkansas is back in it in the Sweet 16. Shout out to Kentucky for being dumbasses. One of the biggest problems of having a rabid fan base is that they are never satisfied, and in their ability to not be satisfied, they have somehow decided to get worse in the process. Should never fired Coach Cal. But yeah, like the whole process of this is just seeing that the best coaches have found a way to get their guys in, whether it's through high school, whether it's through transfer portals, and still be able to get out, because coaching at the end of the day in college matters so much more than just having the best talent on the field. Speaking of coaching, and apparently a guy who I'm pretty sure is like technically still employed. By the time this podcast comes out, he might have been fired already, but Hubbert Davis is reportedly on outs with UNC. I have to say this story. So I remember when Hubbert Davis got hired. It was like either 2020 or 2021. It was probably 2021. And I was seeing someone at the time who was a big UNC fan. And we watched his press conference, right? Because she was a big UNC fan. We were going to watch the press conference. So, these press conferences don't mean much. It's a lot of, I'm going to have a bunch of boys that are going to be turned into men and yada, 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 right? But then the infamous question of essentially, what are you thankful for, essentially? And then he, to almost give weight to him being hired, had to show off the fact that he was married to a white woman, had biracial children. Looking at at the person I was with and just watching her face be stunned at the moment is still one of the moments I'll never forget of all time. Truly hilarious. But Hubbert Davis might be gone, and I think he's probably going to be gone because of the fact that everyone keeps talking about him being gone. It's odd because he has not been a bad coach. They missed the tournament last year after being the number 1 overall seed in the preseason. He's gotten them to a national championship. He currently, right now, his record is 125-64 at UNC, which is outstanding. And I think the most important thing for, most UNC fans is he sent Coach K packing, right? He's the guy who ultimately retired their most hated rival's best coach, right? And obviously Duke has been able to move on, right? They're still playing. They're in the Sweet 16, like I talked about, and Duke is almost such as an institution that I just don't think they'll ever actually be bad at basketball. But it comes down to the point of you're going to fire Hubbert Davis, and then who are you going to try and hire, right? There are only but so many, I think, transcendent coaches in this sport. And UNC is not a coach, not a job that you hire someone who's never coached and kind of bring them up through the ranks. No, you have to have success on this level. And the way that a guy like Rick Pitino, right, how his route even got him to someplace like St. John's, I think, was somewhat of it took a circuitous route, and they ended up being right for a decision that they made. And now UNC is now in this pickle because they need to now hire a new coach because they want to do better than what they have with Hubbert Davis. Although it's very much seemed that they're just trying to work out a buyout. Now there's reports saying that, they want him to say that he's going to retire and do all this mess. But the thing that you have to realize is the same AD that's going to be looking to hire Hubbert Davis replacement hired Bill Belichick, which, granted, has been 1 year, has been a disaster. So you can't even really go, I would say, the Rick Pitino kind of route where it's all right, disgraced-ish college coach or former coach, but absolutely Hall of Fame guy who's going to come into play. So you need to go with an unproven assistant or someone in the NBA to come coach. None of those options seem to really be good. So for me, I would have just kept Hubbert Davis on the team. The big thing in the room here that no one's really talking about is the fact is they lost in round of 32, or they lost in round 1 actually, but it's they lost their best player in Caleb Wilson rather. If he doesn't break his thumb or hand or whatever, is any of this different? If he's in the Sweet 16 and let's say they lose this weekend, is he getting fired? And so this is often what happens with coaching in college, especially at these big universities that have a lot of pressure on them and have a lot of insane fans, is realizing that nothing's good enough. There's nothing that you can do that'll be good enough for this team to ever, for the fans to ever be fully okay with you having a down season or having a year where you lost. Now, I'm guaranteeing you that Kansas, obviously they just lost. They probably already want Bill Self to be gone. And he just won the national championship against that UNC team 4 years ago, And it is troubling to see the way that fandom has shifted in this space. But at the same time, I don't think Hubbert Davis signed up for the kind of job that he's getting, right? We are already talking very much about the professionalism of college sports. And I think someone like Hubbert Davis, who seems to care very much about students and, care about these people that play on his basketball team as actual human beings. But these guys are no longer going to be students, right? You have guys on the team that might be in their 20s, right? Mid 20s playing at the team. And so ultimately, you need to hire a guy who understands that this is not a college job anymore. This is a professional job. And trying to turn around a team like UNC, I don't really think they needed much turnaround, but a level of consistency that I think the fans would be okay with, right? Because this is not what football is to UNC. I think they would like to be good at football, but they need to be good at basketball. And I think Belichick's fiasco that's been happening with UNC is going to stop them from trying to go after a candidate that might be a little not the most beloved by the fans and the boosters down there, right? There really isn't any name that pops off the charts at the moment. So that's why I feel like it's going to be either a guy that has ties to the school, who's an assistant somewhere, either in college or in the NBA, because there aren't any real standout retreads that I think are out there for guys to go after, for UNC to go after. So it will be fascinating to see who UNC goes after, and who will potentially be the next coach, because they now have to fire that man. Okay, if they have been talking so much about we are going to break up, you guys are going to break up. And lastly, the thing that we're just going to cap off about, and again, we will talk more of this with Nina later on this week, about the new WNBA, the new CBA deal. It is done. We will be having women's basketball this spring into fall this year. And a lot of things have gone into it. And like I said, we're going to go deeper into this when we talk to Nina. But a couple of things I just want to touch on about was kind of an overall kind of cultural moment for the WNBA, right? There's going to be more money for the players now. Reports are that the salary cap is going to jump up from about $1.5 million to $7 million next year. Big deal. This deal will run through 2032. They're going to add 2 more games to the season by 2029. So they're going to try to get this thing up to 50 games in 2027 and 2028. And then, like I said, 52 games by 2029. There'll be incentives. So a lot of the stuff that will go into the NBA's deal is going to go to the WNBA's deal with winning awards, getting first team All-NBA, second team All-NBA. And they're going to increase rosters. So we're going to have up to 12 players. The biggest thing, and I think the reason why the players really want to get this done now, is because we're about to have, I would argue, the greatest free agency in WNBA history. There's scheduled to be 100 players. That's correct. 100 players are set to be free agents at the end of next season. So teams that have big salary holes, and especially with the cap going up, that'll be my biggest question for them, is because I remember back in 2016 with the salaries, with the CBA spikes, going from 1.5 to $7 million to me screams of players getting overpaid. I will never forget when that 2016 team season happened, and instead of the CBA being smoothed out the way that they're doing it this time, it spiked in one season. And with that one spike, you had a lot of guys who were, not great NBA players getting a lot of money. I mean, Joakim Noah got $72 million from the Knicks, and it was over for him, right? I can't remember the guy's name. I got to look up Homie's name. The guy who threw up, who went to the Miami Heat, who got like $80 million and he didn't know what to do with, stuff like that. So we're about to see a significant amount of overpays for the WNBA players coming up. But the biggest thing that I've generally thought about this is the WNBA's foothold in its culture, in the sports world, right? For a lot of people who watch the WNBA, I feel like presented itself initially as as something that could be an escapism, right? Sports tend to be an escape for a lot of things that happen in the world, politically, maybe something even personal with your life. But the WNBA spoke to, I think, a place to where people who were tired of a patriarchal structure would leave that and find solace in the WNBA, right? A lot of the WNBA teams are coached by women, not all. There's a significant amount. There's a significant amount of LGBTQ plus players in the league, or on staff, or are coaches in the league. And for a lot of people, they find solace in that. I mean, there are how many videos or how many things that you see online of parties of people watching the playoffs or watching, big games, and there wasn't like men at all, right? Or the typical sports crowd that you would see there. But now with this new CBA and the WNBA becoming more part of, I would say, the national sports fandom, that creates, I think, a little bit of a touch point as far as what happens with the league, right? 60% of the new fans that came into the WNBA last season were men. A lot more people are not only watching the league, but they're gambling on the league as well. So how exactly are you going to have a league and keep kind of the cultural touch point of the league the same when, to be real, the thing that I think a lot of fans liked about the league that it didn't have a lot of men in it? And I think that's going to forever be a challenge for the WNBA. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be overrun by more men watching per se. Like, I think their core base will always stay the same. But they have now expanded to the point where they are now going to be treated, and the players are going to be subjugated to the level of criticism that a lot of guys get subjugated to in the NBA, in the NFL, in Major League Baseball. And how exactly does the league respond to that, to me, is a very interesting decision going forward. I don't know how it goes, where it's supposed to go, but a lot of times what they say is you get paid your salaries to take the level of criticism. Now, I personally don't agree with all of that. I think fans oftentimes cross lines, mostly because they can hide behind a screen and they're too scared to say anything to these people's faces. But it is oftentimes something that players just accept in other leagues. And this is now going to be a league where, while I'm not saying the ladies did not, or the people playing the WNBA did not experience this before, but it's going to be a lot different when, the best players on the team are not just making a couple $100,000, where a lot of Americans could say, I make more than the average WNBA players. No, like the minimum salary of a WNBA player is $300,000, right? And that just comes with a new level of scrutiny and a new fan base that comes in that will be scrutinizing the players more often than not. And seeing how the league kind of deals with that is going to be something that should be watched going forward. It was something that Adam Silver said years ago. I think this is when he just became the commissioner of the league, and he was talking about how he had players come to him who were signed, they had big time contracts, they were already set for life, and how they were miserable. They were generally miserable because of the abuse that they were taking online. And by and large part, like when we talk about abuse, when it comes to emotional trauma, I think with men, we frankly, as a society, don't really care about that. We care way more about it when it comes to women. But that abuse will come for women as well. And thinking about how that's going to affect women going forward, I think it's just something to be just to notice, right? So again, Nina will be here. We'll talk a little bit more about all this stuff later on in the week. All right, everyone. Thank you guys again for listening to the Men Who Cry podcast. Like I said, like, subscribe, review, tell a friend and tell a friend and tell a friend, tell a friend. I'll be back talking all the good sports with you guys later on this week. All right, everyone.